This farm strategy is fantastic. It's consistently profitable, it creates tons of really valuable crafting materials, and it isn't reliant on any temporary league mechanics for it to function. Best of all, it's really simple. Hi, it's Lerald, and this is my strategy for consistently making currency with Einhar's Memories of the Sacred Grove. I ran 100 maps using this strategy, and I kept all of my data, and I have some pretty compelling results. We are super close to hitting the 1,000 subscriber mark, and that's a big milestone for us, so if you're watching and not subscribed, we'd appreciate it if you did. This is a strategy that will work in any league. We are in Affliction League right now, but if you stumble upon this in, I don't know, let me guess a future league name, Nightmare League, it should work exactly the same and be every bit as valuable. This is a great strategy to run deep in a league, so right now, but even if you don't feel like logging in right now, this is still worth learning and filing away into your memory banks so that you can profit from it in the future. And that's because I think this strategy is most profitable near the start of a league. It takes a relatively strong league start character, but we're not talking super strong. You do not need to be able to clear 100% delirious mobs or kill Ubers. Not even remotely close to that level of power. You just need to be able to consistently clear tier 16 harvests relatively quickly, and if you're able to handle most map mods, that's pretty helpful too. At the start of a league, the ratio between the cost of Einhar Memories you need to do this strategy and the value of the harvest Lifeforce you generate is very good. It's much better for you, the person running the memories, than it is once a league is in a more mature state. Like, just to give some proportional numbers here, the cost of these bad boys in the first 2 weeks of this league was around 1 divine orb each, as opposed to the 5 divines they cost now, so we're talking a 500% increase in the cost of the strategy. By comparison, the price of purple, blue, and yellow Lifeforce has roughly doubled or tripled, and Sacred Lifeforce, the fancy white one, has increased by about 400%. So this strategy, which is still very profitable right now, was even more profitable in the first 2 to 3 weeks of the league. And make no mistake, it is still extremely profitable right now. We're talking over 100% return on investment, which is pretty good for a strategy that is creating this much profit per hour and is this simple. Okay, let's talk about this strategy. What we're using here are Einhar's Memories of the Sacred Grove. So let's just talk about memories. How do they work? They are map items. They can drop anywhere in the game, above a certain item level of course, and they grant access to a set of specialized maps. You access those maps by talking to the corresponding NPC in your hideout. I have a few of these in one of my dump tabs here. We got some Alva memories that are pretty worthless, some Nico memories that are pretty bad, Kirek memories that whatever. So if you throw those onto a map in your atlas, here, it'll affect a series of maps, and then you'll be able to talk to that NPC and run those maps. The maps have increased explicit modifier effects, so they get a ton of increased item quantity, item rarity, and pack size. This increases with each map in the chain, and the map chain can be anywhere from 3 to 5 maps, so the final map of the chain is very rewarding. Each memory has a fixed number of maps it will apply to. The Einhar memories that we're doing have a set of 4. Memories also have specific rules on the way they will chain as they path through your atlas. So the best way to look at this and visualize it is to take all of our void stones out. We can just control click those to make them move off to the side. So they obey the rules, the tiers of maps based on the underlying, like the no void stones in tiers of your maps. So if you throw a memory onto a map, it will always try to go to a higher tier map. Now, obviously, once all your void stones are in, they're all tier 16. It's a little less easy to visualize, so that's why we take all the void stones out. It is important to make sure you have all your void stones in before you apply a memory, or the memory will be based on, at least the first map will be based on the map that you put your memory in at the start there. So like, that is a mistake I made on the very first one of these that I was gonna run. I decided not to do it and to count that as like a practice run. Then I got a Sacred Lifeforce from the second map and that said, it was kind of annoying. So the way this works basically is if you apply a memory to a tier 13 map, it will jump to the nearest tier 14 map. So let's say we threw one on a Necropolis. It can choose either of these tier 13 maps here, Mud Geyser or Arid Lake. Well, we kind of want to control where we're going, and because the memories can't path backwards, they can only path forwards and they can only path up in tiers, we want to isolate a spot where we are basically forcing the map to travel in a certain direction. So by starting at Arid Lake here, tier 13, it only has one map it can go to. It can't go down to Necropolis. It can only go up to Jungle Valley. From Jungle Valley, it can only go up one more to Mesa. It can't go down to Mud Geyser. From there, it can only go from Mesa to Stagnation. So we have a guaranteed set of these 4 maps. These are decent layouts. There are a couple of other spots in the Atlas where you could try something like that. Like you could try Crater, which isn't really a great map, or Foundry, which isn't really a great map, and force a similar set of pathing, but then still you would hit Ghetto, which also isn't that great. And you would have the choice of Lava Chamber, which sucks, or Museum, which also isn't great. So that's why I opted to go with Arid Lake here. All right, as I was looking at my footage, I just wanted to make sure that there's no confusion here. So if a memory hits a tier 16 map, like a baseline tier 16 map, it doesn't just end the chain early, it will then try to path to a lower tier map. So if we started with Mesa map, it would go from Mesa to Stagnation to Ivory Temple, and then it would try to go back up in tier, it would go to Bazaar. But if we started at like Bazaar and your options are Bramble Valley, which is tier 15, and Ivory Temple, which is tier 15, it would just choose one of those two randomly, and then it would try to go to the next highest tier map from there. So from Bramble Valley back up to Residence, or from Ivory Temple, it couldn't go down to Temple map, it would have to go back up to Stagnation. So you get some weird behavior. There's definitely some potential for maybe an even more clever setup than what I've gone with here with Arid Lake, but I like these, well, the first 3 maps at least, and I think that works pretty well. Maybe you find something better, that would be pretty cool. As I said, we are running Einhar's Memory, the Sacred Grove, which makes Einhar open up maps that have a special harvest in them. This affects 4 maps, and the harvests are absolutely packed full of mobs. They give massive amounts of juice. There is no choice in the harvest. Each choice of 2 plants that's in a normal harvest is replaced with just a super plant instead. The harvests have a very high chance of containing tier 4 harvest mobs who have a pretty good chance of dropping Sacred Blossoms. I think for my experience, it was somewhere in the range of 10 to 20%. So if we throw our Voidstones back in and we apply this memory, we can throw it onto Arid Lake and it will apply to Arid Lake, Jungle Valley, Mesa, and Stagnation, and then we're able to run those in order from Einhar. We come over here and we talk to him and we're able to interact with this map. Notably, memories are not your maps. They don't interact with anything related to your maps. So Atlas strategy, irrelevant. Scarabs, irrelevant. Sextants, irrelevant. All of that doesn't matter. We like Arid Lake purely because of the pathing. I did look around at some other alternatives. The main thing that we're doing here is we're just trying to run to the harvest and do it and then leave. So you kind of want maps that are not long hallways. Racecourse map would be a terrible place to go. Quick open areas that we can just sprint through and find the harvest as quick as we can. And Arid Lake, Jungle Valley, and Mesa basically all fit that description. And Stagnation isn't that great, but compared to the alternative of getting doing Necropolis for one, then Mud Geyser, which is pretty good, but then possibly doing Reef, that sounded bad. So I think this is the best possible set of maps. Now, as for rolling the maps, we have to roll them in the little window that Einhar throws up for us to interact with. And we can't bulk roll them all at once. We have to actually talk to them, open up this memory here, and then roll the map either through Alk scouring until we get a set of modifiers that we're happy with, or I chose to do a more expensive method where basically I just used Chaos Orbs to roll until I got 5 modifiers, and because the build I'm playing can do basically every single modifier, every map modifier other than cannot leech from enemies, I would roll until I hit 5 map mods. Then I would slap an Exalted on, and the only modifier that I could run but don't really want to is reduce effective non-curse auras, so it's kind of annoying that that happened, so we'll try that again. All right, not too bad. And there we go. I can live with that, and then I'll slap a Val on this, just hoping that it doesn't turn into anything with no leech. Okay, great. Now, voling these is not required. You are hoping to go up to 8 modifiers, but if you're on a build that can't do every single map mod, you don't have to go that route. Additionally, if you're doing this at the start of a league, you can just Alk and scour your way to getting up to 5 or 6 modifiers. I do think having some Exalted Orbs and throwing those on here to guarantee 6 mods every time was pretty good for making this consistently profitable, but not absolutely necessary. There's definitely a bit of cost associated with exalting a map for sure. Now let's just actually run this map and talk about what we're doing in it. What we're doing here is we are hunting for the harvest, and we're that's really the only reason we're in the map at all. We just go right to it, we do it, and we leave. Once I'm in the harvest, I like to drop a portal near the middle. Oh, this is wonderful. Sometimes the harvest will be just like for the Sacred Grove will just literally be right at the entrance, and that's exactly what we like to see. So this is basically it. I like to set a portal in the middle of the harvest, then I just clear out the 4 harvests, and then I leave and do another map. Pretty simple stuff. Let's see if we get anything good here. Usually the first couple of maps in a chain won't have tier 4 beasts, but it has happened plenty of times. Maybe I'll get one off the next couple of little sets of plants to siphon off here. All right, not from this one, maybe from the next. Now, we don't really care about the league mechanic, although if you want to try that and let me know if it adds a ton of profit, that might be a fun experiment. I don't think that the time spent in the Wildwood would be worth it compared to just zooming directly to the harvest, clearing it out, looting, and getting out of the map as fast as possible, at least in terms of currency per hour. But it would definitely make this a more cost-effective strategy, and I am curious how good it actually could be. Maybe it is a really good idea. All right, so this was a little bit of a, I mean, I wouldn't say disappointing, I would say typical first map in the chain. No huge amounts of Lifeforce out of this, no tier 4 guys, but that's okay. Those usually tend to come in the last 2 maps anyways. I did accidentally zone into a Wildwood one time, and all right, we're in and out, even talking through it, in and out in under 2 minutes. I feel pretty good about that. So I did accidentally zone into a Wildwood one time, and I just immediately force quit the game like a scared hardcore player because I didn't want to waste any time in the Wildwood or skew any results there. Now, as for the tier 4 mobs, they can give you Sacred Blossoms. Sacred Blossoms are boss keys for Oshabi, the final harvest boss. She has a guaranteed chance to drop a crystallized life force. That's the sort of big money maker from this strategy. And she has a pretty good chance to drop a Forbidden Shaco, a huge RNG pseudo 6-link helmet that can be worth a ton. And it's a pretty common 3-to-1 gamble item. I think I got 8 of those in this. None of them seemed like they were any good. As for the Oshabi fight, she's really not very complicated. I would say I barely know her mechanics, even having done her a few dozen times over the years. She spawns a ring of vines. You DPS your way through those vines and walk out. That is the main mechanic. She also kind of teleports around a bit. You just follow her and kill her. I just follow her. I blow her face in half. Kind of a half-baked fight, in my opinion. Before I move on to the profits I made from running 100 of these maps, here are some tips for not dying to harvest mobs, because these dudes can be pretty lethal. Most of the danger they pose is through on-death effects. Because of that, you always want to be careful when picking up Lifeforce after everything is dead. Sometimes it's a good idea to actually clear out one harvest area and then move on to the next one and clear that one out and then go back and loot the one before. Just be sure that you don't forget to loot any of it. The purple boys like to leave fire on the ground, so you really want to watch out for that. The purple and yellow harvest mobs like to leave pods on the ground after they die, and running into the pods will make them explode after a short delay. So the way that you can deal with this is by quickly running through the pods to make them explode, and then continue running so that they don't blow up on you, and then run back and loot safely. And that is the approach you should take. Being corrupted blood immune is also a pretty good idea for this content. A bleed immune life flask will work just fine. I used that for some of the early stuff, then I switched over to a bottled faith. Kind of a mistake on my part. I had several times where I died to just like corrupted blood, pretty dumb. I eventually switched to the Ralakesh Pantheon, and that worked for me. You don't need a massive amount of damage for this strategy. A few million DPS is probably a good baseline just for making this smooth and quick, but it's not required. You also don't need Defiance of Destiny, and I wouldn't be surprised if that gets nerfed in a future league. Like, for me, that feels like the free space on the 3.24 patch notes bingo card. But even so, you do get hit a lot of times all at once in Harvest, so having Defiance of Destiny or something like that, just some kind of strong defensive layers, will be really helpful. Evasion is really good here, for example. I would say that this content stresses your defensive layers more than your offensive output. It's not delirium content or Ubers or anything like that. Now let's switch over to talking about profitability. I did 100 of these maps, and I made a spreadsheet compiling all the data here. I started out this whole farm strategy by taking all of the random life force I had in my currency tab and throwing that into a separate dump tab, which we can see here. And I just wanted to make sure that nothing ever got mixed in by accident. I divided the memories up into 5 sets of 5 memories each, Each memory is 4 maps, and I ran them in sets of 5, so 20 map blocks each. Each map takes anywhere from 2 minutes to 3.5 to run, and that is including time spent rolling the maps. Now, I think I can do full sets in about 10 minutes each, but for the sake of under-promising and over-delivering, I decided to deliberately err on the side of being conservative here. Maybe you need to step away for a minute to get a drink, or maybe your build just isn't quite as fast. Maybe you die or disconnect or something. I am playing a Lightning Strike champion. It's super tanky as long as there's stuff to hit and leech from, but it's not the fastest build in the world by any stretch. So with all that being said, I estimated 12 minutes per set, which is 3 minutes a map, and I think that's a conservative estimate. This means the 5 memory sets I laid out in my spreadsheet here would take around 1 hour each. So this net profit column here is basically just the amount of divines I made in the hour doing that set. 5 hours total, and I made 160 divines worth of Harvest Lifeforce in that time. And that's talking pure profit. In terms of what I generated, it was closer to 300, but obviously there's a pretty significant cost associated with that. This is a little over 80,000 Lifeforce per hour, and it's pretty evenly distributed between Vivid, which is yellow, and then Wild and Primal, which are purple and blue. Now, Vivid is over twice as valuable as the other two, but they're, pretty close to the same drop rate, and you don't really have much control over what you get. Now, as for Sacred Lifeforce, I found them to be surprisingly common. One of the things I've heard about this strategy in the past is that you're really, it's RNG, you're relying on the Sacred Lifeforce to make all your money. Is that true? Hell no. If we set the divine value per Sacred Lifeforce to 0, we can see I was making about 32 divines of profit per hour according to my little total down here. If we set that to 0, we're still close to 18 divines per hour. So if we got incredibly unlucky and we had no Sacred Lifeforce drop at all, we would still be making about 55% of what we did with the actual results of the strategy. That's pretty good. It also means that only about 45% of what we make comes from the RNG heavy good luck side of this strategy. Like I said before, I think doing the Affliction League mechanic would make the ROI number go up. I think it would go up by quite a bit because Harvest Lifeforce drop rates are affected by increased item quantity, but I think that it would make this strategy slower. I think I could see it going either way in terms of profit per hour. I think it would probably double the average time spent in each map, and I really don't know how that would affect the amount of drops per mob. Better for making every memory count and maximizing the value of each memory and being frugal, cheap, but probably not better in terms of raw profit per hour. Time is the only truly finite resource we have in life, so I prefer to keep things quick and profitable. And bleak. Now you'll note that I didn't talk about currency I spent rolling the maps or currency I made in the maps, and I probably spent 5 to 10 chaos per map rolling and falling and so on, and I probably made 5 to 10 chaos or so per map in terms of raw currency and maps and div cards dropping. I decided this all canceled each other out. I felt like that side of the equation was really tiny and inconsequential compared to these numbers here. I didn't get a single raw divine in all of these 100 maps. I did get several fortunate cards and scout cards from doing Jungle Valley maps, so I think it equaled out in the end. I came out of this strategy with 2 the aspirant div cards. If we look at our Harvest Memory dump tab, 2 of this weird div card that gives an elevated influenced random item. And I came out with 8 Forbidden Shakos as well that I think all have terrible rolls, and even a badly rolled Shako is worth about 1 divine just for people who like to do 3-to-1 gambles. So I felt like once again I was under-promising and over-delivering here on just kind of counting all this stuff as canceling out. Like I didn't lump the Shakos or the cards or this perfectly rolled, not very good, abhorrent interrogation. I didn't count any of that in any of the profit at all. I only counted Lifeforce. I think this feels honest, and I honestly believe that this is one of the best farm strategies you can run. It's super doable on pretty much any build that you have online and able to handle the in-game. It's probably safer than most Eldritch Altar juicing in-game strategies too, especially if they're layering in any amount of delirium at all. It doesn't require a magic find. I guess it could scale with it, but it doesn't require it. It creates Lifeforce, which is always valuable throughout a league, so it's profitable from league start to league end. And you're really providing a valuable service to the league economy. You're keeping the Lifeforce supplied to the community, which is great. If you really wanted to maximize the value out of this strategy, you would probably farm this stuff in the first couple of weeks of a league and then actually wait to liquidate the Lifeforce until like the 3rd, 4th, 5th week of the league when the value of those has gone up like by 200 or 300%. That really would be the absolute best approach for maximizing profits from this strategy, but it would require some patience. I also just find this strategy for farming harvest to be a fun, simple change of pace from doing it in the more complicated RNG-driven crop rotation strategy, where you have to game mechanics and think about everything 2 steps ahead. In this, you just go in, click the buttons, don't think about anything, kill the guys, loot the Lifeforce, you profit every time, and sometimes you profit a whole lot more when you get to, like, I got 5 Sacred Lifeforce from one of these sets. Pretty nice. Now for the only downside, I need to liquidate like 400,000 Lifeforce from these 100 maps. That's maybe gonna be a little bit annoying. I really enjoyed this farm strategy. It's extremely lucrative, it's pretty chill other than the on-death effects from purple and yellow harvest monsters, and I think it's a really good change of pace from a lot of the Atlas-driven or bossing strategies that I've focused on throughout this league so far. Really fun, 10 out of 10, we'll do it again. Alright, that's it. If you like this video, please give us a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thanks for watching and have fun doing Harvest. Bye.